Originally we were going to call the work Collapse, and at some point I realised the work isn't about collapse. It's actually about the moment before the body starts collapsing, when it's in mid-flight and is caught at the apex of flight. So very much the work is about the antithesis of gravity, and so there's something idealistic that we somehow invest in that image of seeing a human body somehow defying gravity.
Well, it's like human potential. You know, we see it, so we feel that this is not, it is extraordinary to us, but it's not beyond the limits of the human being. So we do feel empowered. And
initially I was wondering what the work would be about. Should there be some other thematic basis to the work other than photography? Could the photography somehow seem to add as an empowering element into some other kind of, not narrative, but some other conceptual area that had nothing to do with photography at all? But then I kind of, at some point I arrived at this realization that the work actually could just be about photography, because there's so many ideas embedded in the concepts of what photography constitutes, both as a physical and chemical form, and also conceptually, and also what it does in terms of its relationship to time and perception. One thing that Lois talked about was the process of looking, her looking at the dancers looking at her, the dancers looking at the audience looking at Lois and the dancers, and there is this sort of ecosystem of voyeurism that takes place between the dancers, Lois, and the audience. And so I thought the kind of notion of narcissism was really interesting, because dance often is very narcissistic, yet how could I present sort of the dancer as a narcissistic subject and at the same time have a sense of irony about that? So this sense of kind of irony to the work did become important, although it's not irony as in, you know, it's it's ha-ha irony. It's just, there's kind of just a very subtle kind of playful underpinning to everything. So when the dancers are coming out and being incredibly heroic with their bodies, at the same time it's sort of undercut through, they're kind of got streetwear on, and the music's sort of like, at one point it's sort of this heavy metal thrash, and there's a sense of fun about the work. So I think we were kind of very careful about the fact that we didn't want to present the dancers as these kind of, in the way that, say, classical ballet might present the sort of the perfection of the body. What these dancers do is really extraordinary in terms of virtuosity and pushing their bodies, but at the same time they have a real kind of like accessible humanity about them. They're very human, they're very upfront with who they are within the performance. And when they are being kind of incredibly showy and narcissistic, there is a kind of a very tongue-in-cheek irony coursing underneath it.
I think that some of the photographic scenes resonate on different levels. For example, what we call the bodyscape scene, which is the dancers entwined, and I walk out with a very long lens, and I'm very intrusive, and it's very voyeuristic. So that's making the statement that Gary just referred to about photographers voyeur. At the same time, the pictures that appear on the screen are total abstractions. And so that exists on two levels, like how do you get an abstraction out of this rapidly moving configuration of entwined limbs? And what's interesting from my point of view with that is that I'm somewhat shooting blind in a sense with it, because I'm so close up and it's moving so quickly. And then the stroboscopic scene where you see 6 arms and limbs moving against black. On one hand, that is referring back to the origins of photography and early photographic experimentation on human locomotion and, you know, the history of photography. And also it's an attempt to have a photograph show motion, because the rest of the show, everything is arrested motion, but in the stroboscopic you get a panoply of arms which depict the motion. So everything kind of exists on a couple of levels simultaneously.